A closely contested match is obviously very exciting for viewers. The tension builds as the lead goes back and forth, and we're not quite sure who will prevail. But perhaps the most thrilling outcome of a match on TV is a tie. This then leads to a roll-off to determine the winner. There are generally two types of roll-off. A 2-frame roll-off, where both players will bowl a 9th and 10th frame, and the person with the higher total advances, or a 1-ball sudden death roll-off. If both players get the same score, then another shot is thrown until there is a winner. It is the sudden death roll-off that we're going to look at specifically in this video, and specifically a match that resulted in the longest sudden death roll-off in PBA history. I discovered this particular match when recording a video I released last week about Tom Smallwood. I found that Smallwood was involved in this roll-off that made the history books. It was during the 2013 World Series of Bowling at the Scorpion Championship, and Smallwood was the number 2 seed and would face the winner of the first match, either Tommy Jones or Josh Blanchard. The first match was a close one, but Blanchard managed to advance after needing a mark in the 10th and managed to take care of the 10-pin. So just before we look at what happened during the roll-off, let's see how we actually got there and look at what happened during the match. It was a good start from Smallwood, who had the first 3 strikes. Blanchard left the big 4 in frame 2, but take a look at this spare attempt. This one was incredibly close, and I'm not quite sure how he didn't convert this. This was very unlucky, but he bounced back with a double. Tom Smallwood then went high in the 4th, but managed to avoid a split and then struck again in the 5th. Blanchard managed to capitalise on his double, throwing a strike on the right lane, and then on the left lane he had to make a good shot, as this was the lane that had given him some trouble. You can see this ball really does hook down the lane, and it looked like it was going to go through the nose at one point. But it went high and he managed to trip the 4-pin to make it 4 in a row. And this evened up the match. Smallwood struck on the right lane, but this left lane is really looking quite nasty. It did look to be a bit inside, but this lane has been leaving a number of splits, so there definitely isn't any room inside. Smallwood paid the price, leaving the 4-6-7 for an open frame. Blanchard then threw 2 really nice shots to make it 6 in a row, and now looks to have complete control of the match with a 25-pin lead after 8 frames. But Smallwood does throw strikes in the 8th and 9th to keep himself alive. He made a better shot on the left lane, but you can still see the ball hooked and went slightly high. Blanchard now in the 9th frame, and this ball was inside straight off his hand, and if this had been on the left lane, there's no way this ball would have held. He couldn't get a trip 4 this time, however, but made the spare. He can now shut out Smallwood with 2 strikes and 7 pins, and does make a decent shot, but leaves a 10-pin which he spares. But his fill shot fails to hook, and he leaves the bucket for a 6 count. This makes a huge difference now, as Smallwood could tie the match with 1 strike and 9 spare. The great thing for Smallwood is that he's finishing on the right lane. He gets the first strike, but he now needs 1 more to advance to the title match. This shot isn't as good as the first and hooks up on Smallwood, but he gets away with a 9, which he spares, and this means that we are heading to a sudden death roll-off. The rules are simple. Each player throws 1 ball, and whoever has the highest count advances. If both players get the same, then they keep throwing shots until there is a winner. As the higher seed, Smallwood got the choice of starting lane and order, and he chose to go first, and unsurprisingly decided to start on the right lane. Let's just look through the shots from both players, and then we will analyse everything after. It's a strike from both players in shot 1. Blanchard is a tad fortunate as he goes slightly light, but manages to kick out the 10-pin. On to the left lane now, and it's another perfect shot from Smallwood. There's a lot of pressure on his opponent, especially on this very tricky left lane. But it's a great response, and this was a much better shot than his first ball. Now on to shot number 3, and Smallwood is locked in and throws his 3rd strike. But once again, Blanchard responds with an almost identical looking shot. So now we keep going for a 4th shot, and it's yet another strike. And these guys are really putting on a show right now, and Blanchard responds yet again with his 4th strike. Now on to shot number 5, and this was probably Smallwood's worst shot so far. All the others were pretty much perfect, but this one was just inside. However, it did hold, and he managed to get his 5th strike. Now Josh had to strike to stay alive, but the 10-pin stood and Smallwood advanced. This was a fantastic display from both players in this roll-off, and it wasn't as if they were throwing 8s and 9s and tying, they were both locked in throwing strike after strike. But I just want to analyse a few of these shots, as I think that although Blanchard threw some good shots, Smallwood was indeed the worthy winner, and I also just want to show why Blanchard's last ball did not strike. Let's look at Smallwood's first shot, and I just want you to look at where the ball finishes after it hits the pins. The ball is right in the middle of the lane and it's still driving towards the left, which shows that this ball was in the right place. Now let's compare this with Blanchard's first shot. Just look at how much further right his ball finished up. It deflects off to the right, and normally that would have resulted in a 10-pin, but he got a good break tapping out the 10. Blanchard's next shot was much better, and look at the difference here to the previous shot. This one is in pretty much the same place as Smallwood's first shot. Smallwood meanwhile is just making great shot after great shot, and we can tell this by again looking at where the ball is finishing and the fact that it's driving to the left side after the ball has hit the pins. Now let's analyse the fifth shot that did not strike for Blanchard. You can see the same thing happened as the first ball. The ball has deflected over to the right, and the pin even taps the 10-pin in the same sort of way as before, but this time he doesn't get the break. So although he was still making good shots, we can see that on at least 2 occasions the ball wasn't in the right place. The first time he got away with it, but the second time he wasn't as fortunate. Whereas Smallwood was pretty much just perfect on every single shot. Smallwood ended up facing Marshall Kent in the championship match and ultimately managed to triumph and took home the title. This was his second PBA title 4 years after his first win. Smallwood held himself together incredibly well during this match. It all looked lost at one point when Blanchard was working on 6 in a row, but Smallwood hung in there and stepped up in the roll-off. I think this match has been forgotten about, but as the longest roll-off in PBA history, I think it definitely deserves to be mentioned more. And that is going to bring us to an end of this video. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and as always, I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of this match. And I'd love to hear from you all in the comment section below. Let me know if there are any other PBA sudden death roll-offs that you particularly enjoyed. There's definitely been some very exciting ones over the years. The one that springs to my mind was Norm Duke against Dave Traber. That didn't go on for as long, but I just remember that being incredibly intense. So make sure to drop a comment, and as always, thank you bowling fans, and see you all next time.